Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And we are ready to get started. I am going to pass it over to our volunteer, Pat, who's going to introduce us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pat Johnson. I'm an AARP volunteer, and I've been with the organization about 4.5 years since I retired. Welcome to AARP Washington's presentation of how to protect yourself from fraud and identity theft. So today we'll be talking about fraud and identity theft, and AARP's Fraud Watch Network is a nationwide effort to share information about the best ways to protect ourselves from fraud. Last year, we delivered almost 200 presentations throughout the state. Today, we will share an inside look on how some scammers think, including how they're using a variety of scams to defraud internet users. In addition, you'll learn how to improve safeguards against identity theft, fraud, and cyber scams. And we'll also share firsthand accounts from victims and let you know what to do if you or someone you know has been a victim. So I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. One is Jean Matheson, who's worked for AARP for about 14 years doing fraud prevention work. The other is Cottrell Dixon, who retired after 21 years from AT&T Mobility. And she's been volunteering with her church outreach program since then, with AARP Speakers Bureau, and with advocacy volunteer programs. She's also a mobile notary public signing agent. So without further ado, please welcome our speakers, Cottrell and Jean, who will be discussing how to protect yourself from fraud and identity theft.
Thank you, Pat. And I'm Jean Matheson, and again, I thank you for joining us today. We're glad you're here. Our goal is to share tips with you that we believe will help you stay safe from financial ruin in some cases, but at very least to be aware of different types of fraud and to protect yourself from identity theft. Research shows that people who receive information about fraud are 80% less likely to fall for a scam. Even more so, if you receive that information from a friend, you're more likely to take it in heart. So I say, welcome, friends, and I hope that you will share this information with friends in your circle as well. So let's get started. So AARP Washington has been a leader in the fight against fraud for many years, and I know some people are surprised at the extent to which AARP is involved and may wonder why. Well, here's a little bit of our backstory. That picture that you see there is our founder, Ethel Percy Andrus, and she was an educator who went looking for one of her teachers who she heard was extremely ill, and she wanted to see if she could help her. And when she got to the teacher's address, she couldn't find where she lived. And it turned out she was living in a chicken coop because she was ill, could not work, had no health insurance, and was in financial ruin. And that's really the start of AARP. So for all these many years, we have been a leader in financial security, specifically for adults who are 50 and older. As Pat mentioned early on, our volunteers have spoken with millions of victims, and last year we hosted about 200 workshops in total, but 120 of them were related to the Fraud Watch Network. This graph, I think, is really sort of a mind opener as to what happens in terms of fraud and how older people are so adversely affected. So you see the yellow line there. That indicates the number of people reporting fraud outreach to the Federal Trade Commission. And of those people, the bars down below indicate ages. Of those people, the percentage on the line indicate the number who lost money. So about 40% of people 19 and under lost money, whereas only 11% of older people lost money. However, look at the difference in dollars lost. 8 times as much per victim was lost with an 80-year-old as was lost with someone who's 20. And unfortunately, as we age, we're less able to re-earn the money that we've lost. We really need to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to be aware of fraud and to protect our resources. This is a list of the top 10 fraud categories that were reported to the FTC last year by Washington state residents. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are issues that we will discuss in detail in just a few moments. So you see at the top of the list is imposter scams, followed by identity theft. These two types of fraud are always on the top 10. Many of these are just standard. We see them year after year. Since we aren't going to discuss the others in detail, I just want to give you a brief little overview of what they are. So we see telephone and mobile services. Typically, that concerns problems with services, being overcharged, maybe someone hacking in, that sort of thing. Online shopping, and this is growing right now. A problem with online shopping is oftentimes the merchandise isn't as promised. Guarantees are not honored. There was a case that was brought by the Attorney General some years back where people were placing online shopping orders and they were asked if they wanted to join like a super customers club or something, and they agreed to it. And the next thing they knew was that month after month they were seeing new charges on their credit card accounts that they had used for that particular purchase, and they were items that they had not offered. So you always want to check on your online shopping and make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. Debt collection is a problem that targets older people as well, because older people oftentimes say, I didn't want the mailman to see that letter that said third notice. They will pay a debt they don't owe. Oftentimes, too, the people who are doing the debt collection are not acting in accordance with the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Be sure to know what are your rights. Make sure you get the information in writing and that you are not being asked to pay debts you do not owe. Internet services, again, people say they were charged for services they didn't want and they had no recourse, so they filed a complaint with the FTC. Auto-related scams, oftentimes repairs that were not needed, changes in the financing terms. And with credit bureaus and information furnishers, oftentimes there are errors, and we will be talking a bit later in the program about what you can do to protect your information as it is reported to the credit bureaus. And now I'm going to turn it over to Cottrell, who's going to talk to us about these scams that are so prevalent in our state.
Thank you, Jean. Hello, everyone. I want to talk about those four that were highlighted, and starting with that first one, which was listed as number 2, imposter scams. Although ID theft is probably the top of the list nationwide, imposter fraud is actually number 1 in the state of Washington. As a matter of fact, 27% of things that reported to the FTC were imposter fraud. And what is that? It's kind of like the picture of the guy there with the funny face in front of him, pretending to be someone that he's not. And some of the popular ones at the top: IRS, Social Security, tech support, there's grandchild, sweetheart, and much more. So in the IRS, you probably are familiar with a lot of people pretending to be the IRS, and they're threatening you or a victim that something is past due and they need to pay their taxes immediately. Another common call is tech support. So we all have computers and we get a lot of calls. Maybe they say they're from Microsoft or a company and that your computer might have been hacked into and that they need to access your machine. So many people are scared and they just don't realize that those aren't the people to believe in, and we just have to protect ourselves. Grandparent scams, that was really popular a couple of years ago. It may have died down a little bit, but that's when your grandchild or a friend or a child calls and pretends to be in need of money. They usually were outside the country. Right now we can't travel, so of course that hasn't happened. But they might have been in Mexico and, hey, I need money right away. They may text you on the phone and they have some information. Granny, I need some money. I don't want to tell mom or dad. And you end up sending them money. This has been real popular. Another one, identity theft. Nationally, identity theft is probably number one. And this is when an imposter takes your identity and there's a breach, a database breach. Not long ago, you might know, Washington actually reported probably were the second highest number of ID theft. But I do have some good news. We have gone down. We're probably about number 34, so we're on a good trend. ID theft is probably, to me, it's the most terrible one. That when someone takes your identity and they assume your information, your personal information, and they use it for criminal gain. And a lifetime of good credit can be totally wiped out. And it takes really a long time to get your credit back, maybe even years. In some cases, it's a result of a data breach. And that has happened, most of you might have known, in the news with Target. Equifax had one last year, and even the University of Washington, the medical clinics had a data breach. Phishing schemes, that's another popular one. And that phishing schemes you may not know about, but it's exactly how it sounds. It's just like if you go fishing. They have a pole and they've got a hook and they're going to reel you in. So what they do is that they normally will use email, and they will email you with a link and it'll look official, and they want you to click on that link. And when you click on that link, what happens is they get into your computer and they may have access to your private passwords or your sensitive information. And it's really important to protect your personal information. You don't want to respond to any requests for your Social Security, your bank account, your date of birth, or your mother's maiden name, unless you initiated that call. Also, they use stealing mail or sensitive documents. You want to protect or lock your mailbox, and also make sure that you shred all your personal information. It's always good to have a shredder on hand before you throw away anything in the mail. As you get things in the mail, you wouldn't believe how many people actually go through your trash and things like that, and they can obtain information that way. Another thing is bogus jobs. So right now, a lot of people are at home and they're online, and you're applying for jobs or any type of work. You really need to be careful. There is no reason for you to give your Social Security number or any verifiable information that can contain your personal information over the internet. This type of information can be collected by criminals and used to take your identity. The number five, was banks and lenders, if you remember on our first list that we were looking at. So you might have recalled a reputable bank in our area. They had problems with scammers too. Their employees were actually selling to customers things that the customer was not aware of or didn't need. So that has been a problem. Also, loan modifications. A lot of us might be looking at reverse mortgages. Those were a big scam. There has been places and things put together to help us protect against that, but we still have to be careful. The one thing that you want to remember about reverse mortgages is always get a second opinion, and you should contact your financial advisor. And of course, you can always contact AARP if you need assistance with that. There's been bank employee fraud and commission schemes. Those are things that have targeted senior citizens for years. And I would like to say that if you do have an issue, you can contact the Senior Citizens Agency in your county. And if you don't know how to contact them, you can contact AARP, and we can help assist you with that. Number 6, prizes, sweepstakes, and lotteries. Okay, this one always is a winner. We always want to win money. We're always excited about a prize. So out of the blue, you win a prize worth a lot of money, but before you can receive that prize, what do you have to do? You may have to send them money. So this is a probably one of the most popular scams too. So you win $50,000, but they say, in order to collect your money, you need to send us maybe $500 or $300. Well, you shouldn't have to pay money to receive your prize. So this is something to be on the lookout for. It's a common scam. One of the two things that I would say is, number one, you will not win a lottery if you didn't enter, okay? And number two, if you think it's legit, what you should do is just tell the caller, okay, I need my $50,000, but why don't you deduct that $300 from my winnings and then just send me the rest and then see what happens. They probably will hang out. So sadly, sweepstakes and lottery frauds are often targeted to us older women. And why you say older women? Well, about 12.5% of us actually live in poverty and are worried that they won't have sufficient funds in order to last their lifetimes. So women are a frequent targeter. So as women, we have to be careful with those type of situations. Next slide. Scams that target older consumers, as I was saying before, investment frauds. I don't know, why does it always seem that it's all about money? We're always interested in money. So that tugs at our hearts. So there's been investment fraud schemes for gold coins, free lunch seminars. A lot of you may get those calls where, hey, you're invited to a free lunch seminar, come out, get a free lunch on us. And you don't have to buy anything, just listen to the presentation. The only thing is, after the presentation, then you get the hard sales pitch, and you really need to be careful. Don't make any rash decisions to purchase anything at that time. Also, home repairs. We have to be careful with contractors. You want to make sure your contractor, if you have a home or you're living in a home, is a registered, licensed, and bonded contractor. And you never, ever want to pay for anything up front. You want to pay half before you start, and then the other half once the job has been completed. Another one is charity scams. We all want to do good, and we love giving money to charities. The one charities that they have targeted is military, firefighters, policemen. We call those badge charities, and that's a common misconception. They're always tugging at our heartstrings. So you want to make sure that the charity is legitimate. Fundraising organizations may keep 90% of what they collect. So you have to do your due diligence and make sure that the amount of money that you're giving, see what percentage actually goes to the charity. And right now it's common for scammers to use natural disasters. We just had a hurricane, so you start hearing hurricane relief funds, so you can help those people there. You want to make sure your money is going to that actual place. And you can always call and make sure that it's going to where it needs to go. I'm going to turn it over. I'm sorry, Jean, but I just want to turn it over to Jean, because talking about what's going on in the news right now, she's going to talk to you a little bit about COVID and all the scams that are around that unfortunate virus. Thank you, Jean.
Yeah. So these are the reports that we have seen from the Federal Trade Commission and from other law enforcement agencies regarding scams related to COVID-19. Number one has been reported on fraudulent goods and services. So someone may decide to go online. A lot of people aren't shopping now. They want to stay home, but they want sanitizers, they want face masks, those sorts of things related to COVID, and they'll order it online. So sometimes it's just a matter of price gouging, where someone has bought up all the supplies and now is selling them at a really exorbitant price. Sometimes you're placing an order with a non-existent company for non-existent goods, and they're just taking your money. So you really want to be cautious. Anything related to COVID. This can happen online. It can also happen by telephone. Some people have reported scammers going door to door. Oftentimes the door-to-door scammer, though, is looking to scare you into either buying a test or some sort of medication, a supplement that they believe will help you stay safe. So there have been a number of scams involving fake cures, home testing kits. We're going to talk about contact tracing in more detail in a minute. That's something that a lot of states are doing now so that they can better identify people who are at risk. And also pop-up testing. Pop-up testing scams have been seen in our state. And that's where maybe you've got an empty parking lot one day and the next day tents are set up and there's a big sign saying we're doing testing for COVID-19. If ever you are tempted to pull into one of those, you want to make sure that it's a legitimate site, that it is connected with a health or either a hospital, a clinic, something like that. And be really cautious. You should not have to pay money. You should not have to show your Social Security number or anything else in order to qualify for those sorts of tests. In addition to the goods and services, there have also been a number of scams related to financial matters. So I really want to draw your attention to this prepaid debit card that's on the screen. The card itself is not a scam. It's absolutely legitimate, but because they have been little publicized, people who receive those cards in the mail do not expect that it will contain anything legitimate. It comes in a plain white envelope along with a letter that asks you to call a number, to share your Social Security number, and then you'll be able to access your $1,200 stimulus payment on that card. Again, the card is legit, but because so few people are aware of it, a number of people have thrown their cards into the mail, didn't think they were legitimate. If you receive a call from someone saying, we've got your money, we want to release it to you, but there are questions about what's your bank account? We want to do direct deposit. We need to make sure you're the same person who has this money coming, but we need for you to verify your information. Please do not share any information with anyone who contacts you. There have also been a number of unemployment scams, and I bet you've heard about that because Washington State was really targeted early on, where people, again, back to the identity theft that Kit just told us about, people would assume someone else's identity and then attempt to collect unemployment benefits that were not due to them. Small businesses also have been targeted for loans, and they've told, well, you can qualify for this money, but we're going to need to gather all of your financial information in order to determine how much money we can loan to you. Please do not share information unless you initiate the contact. Back to charity fraud. Again, it's rearing its head here as well. People are told we really need to help our neighbors who are not doing very well. We need to be able to donate to charity. And so you want to make sure that a charity is legitimate. There are many legitimate charities that are collecting money for COVID-19 victims. But here's the situation. If you want to donate money, let's say a place like the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, something like that, someone calls you and indicates that that is with whom they are connected, you can't trust that that's true. Instead, if you want to make a donation, please contact the charity directly to make your donation. And unfortunately, in this time of this awful pandemic, we're also seeing that these imposter scams are also an epidemic. We want everyone to be safe, especially in these times when we're so worried about our health and we're worried about our finances. It's easy to be kind of lured in, kind of reeled in for these phishing scams. So please be safe. I want to spend a minute talking about contact tracing. You've probably heard about it. It's pretty common now in our state. But just basically, here's how it works. And we've got this little chart here that tells us, number one, I don't know if you can see this, I'll just put my cursor there. Number one is that someone is thought to have COVID-19. They are supposed to quarantine. Then, number two, they're going to be tested, and it will be determined whether or not it actually is COVID-19 or is it something else. Number three, the person will be put into isolation maybe even hospitalized depending on their situation. But as those steps are progressing, the patient will be asked to share information about anyone with whom he or she has come into contact. And it's not going to be just passing someone on the street. It will be someone with whom they were in contact for 10 minutes or more. So that then would be identifying those contacts, and then the process starts over. So here's where we're seeing some difficulty. When the person being contacted is told, you have been in communication or in contact with someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and now we need to get your information. And oftentimes the scammers are asking for specific information that we know is not legitimate. All that you should be asked by a legitimate contact tracer is you should be asked for your address. You will be asked for your ethnicity. And again, that's for the purpose of tracing. How is the disease spreading? You will never be asked for financial information, for bank account information, for immigration status, Social Security, any of that. So you want to make sure if you get a question like that, you cannot trust that it is legit. It sounds like a scam. And so where would you go from there? Okay, you would go here to the Washington State Coronavirus. It's a whole task force. They've got people from the health department, from the Attorney General's office. Everyone is involved. They have a 7-day-a-week hotline. You see the number there. It's 800-525-0127. 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. If you are not sure about the status of your stimulus payment, the only place to contact is the IRS. If you register with the post office, you see there's a link here called informeddelivery.usps.com. You will get a notification of mail that you can expect in your mailbox that day. Then, if a check is on its way or other information related to COVID-19, you will know to expect it. And finally, we really recommend check out the AARP website. There's a lot of great information, not only on coronavirus, but also on other topics. And we, as part of the AARP Speakers Bureau, are available as speakers for any group with whom you might want to connect us. We are happy to share this information. We really want everyone to be safe. And now I turn it back over to Cottrell.
This is an interesting chart. How do con artists actually contact people? And you probably see the darker, deeper color represents the contact method. So at the very top of your screen, you see where that dark green line goes all the way over, and it's 74%. Wow. Those are phone calls. So telephone method is probably one of the most popular ones. And then the lighter color, it actually represents the money loss. But on the telephone call, it's only 5%, right? But that 5% reported an aggregated loss of $493 million. That's a median of about $1,000 a call. So telephone fraud is very popular, and it seems to be very lucrative for con artists. And they're not only using your home phones, they're accessing our cell phones now too. So we really need to be aware of robocalls. And you might know, what is a robocall? That's a call that's dialed electronically. And the caller ID number, everybody thought caller ID was going to solve our problems. Well, they've got around that now too. So the ID may look like a local number, so you're going to answer it, or a friend or a number that you might recognize, but it's really not. It's an electronic call, excuse me. And those are doubling in the U.S. There's over 50 billion a year, and worse off, it's 40 to 50% are attempts to defraud you. Some robocalls are legitimate, like your has to call for emergencies, or of course now there's the politicians are calling to get your vote. but a lot of scammers are calling. And the one thing about a robocall is, guess what? You don't have to answer. If you don't recognize a call, the best thing we can do to tell you is don't answer. They can leave a message. And if it's that important, they can leave a message, and then you can pick up the message, see who it is, and return the call. With websites and emails that your victims also too. Websites and emails are looking really clean right now, and they will have those links. I talked about it before. You don't want to click on those links to give them any information, or they can access your computer. You need to be careful with that. There's also email scams, and Medicare is another one needing more information. A lot of us are on Medicare, so they're emailing you saying, we need your information on Medicare. Just like I said before, we don't want to give out any personal information, and especially not any PIN numbers. No one should ask you for a PIN number into an account or a banking account. You could call the particular vendor or the organization and ask them if they called you and if they need that information, but don't ever give out anything that is solicited, okay? One thing they go after is phantom riches. We're always, like I said before, want to win money. Lotteries, scammers will always tug at your heart with, oh, you're going to get that dream vacation, you're going to get that dream house. Another thing they do is profiling. They profile, they do their homework. They know who to target. They know who they're calling. They've already done their research, whether they're calling men or women. One of the things I thought was interesting is that men frequently know everything. You know, like when you're with a man and you're driving, oh no, I don't need to use the map, right? They know everything. So they're targets because they never take the time to really find out if the caller is legit or if that is true, and then they may be sucked into that. Another one is scarcity. This is really popular. And I used to work in marketing, and this is a tool people use all the time. Hey, this is the last 3. You got to buy this one. There's only 1 left. And if you've been shopping online, when it comes up, 2 is left. So that means, hey, I got to buy it now. Well, you don't have to buy it now. They'll restock. And a lot of times they send that out to thousands of people, and they've got 500 left. And it's just a way to get you to purchase something. You never should purchase anything on a whim. You could always put it in the box, the outbox. Yeah, I think that's what they call it. And I leave my shopping stuff in there and wait for a day and then think about it. So that's something that you need to be careful with. Tugging at our hearts, we call it ether. And this is the secret that a lot of scam artists use. It's called a heightened emotional state. And what that means is that you're emotional, you got your feelings, so they get you excited, and then you don't consider that it's even a scam, and you forget to ask questions, or you don't read the information. And we have interviewed many con artists, and they say the one thing that they do that can get people is to get them under the ether, to get them in that emotional state, and then they forget what's going on, and then they fall for the scam. You just won a jackpot worth $3 million. Oh my God. Or your grandchild was arrested. I talked about that before. Don't get excited. Calm down. Really think about the situation, because we want you to be safe and protected.
Okay, so what are some things that we can do to stay safe? And these are, no matter what type of scam is happening, if it's next year and it's something that we haven't even considered, it hasn't happened yet, these are tips that you can use that will absolutely help you stay safe from fraud and identity theft. So here we go. We suggest that you use a locking mailbox. There are 2 reasons. One is on inbound mail, but also your outbound mail. I know here in our neighborhood, we all have mailboxes that sit on a post down at the end of the driveway. Oftentimes when I drive down the street, I will see many mailboxes with those front ends just flapping in the breeze. Someone has gone down the road and opened up all of those mailboxes. Typically, we do not send out junk mail. which means that the information in that outbound mailbox could have your personal or your financial information on it. Also, inbound mail. Oftentimes, and we're going to talk about this in a minute in terms of pre-approved credit offers, if you get something like that in the mail, someone could take it out, fill it out with their information, and then get credit in your name. So you want to be really careful and, if possible, use a locking mailbox. If you're sending out something that's important, particularly if you've got a check or something in it, I would really suggest sending it from the post office. We also suggest shredding documents, and I believe that Kit mentioned that earlier as well. And it's really recommended to use a cross-cut shredder rather than one that will shred into strips. Oftentimes there are banks or other organizations that will host maybe a shredding day. If you see something like that in the paper, or you'll get a little blurb from your bank, really take advantage of that. Oftentimes when I talk with people about banking, they will say to me, oh, there have been hacks into banks, there have been problems. I think I wouldn't want to do online banking. Well, one day I heard the Attorney General answer a question about whether online banking was safer, and the Attorney General said it is way safer, and the reason is this. If I mail out a paper check, probably the person on the other end who receives that check has online banking, which means they're going to scan it. And if it's a grandchild who's getting a birthday present and that child is scanning a check on his or her telephone, for example, to deposit it, what is going to happen to your paper check? So just, human nature being what it is, I really suggest to consider online banking. If you do bank online, I also suggest do not have companies, let's say, reach into your account. So if you're paying your electrical bill or your water bill online, you can have them reach into your account. I think it's safer, though, for you to pay out and rather have it set up so that a certain day of the month you pay out, but you don't have them reach into your account. We haven't spent a lot of time today, on computer safety or cyber crime. But a really important strategy is to use strong passwords, and specifically, please do not use the same password for all of your accounts. Particularly your financial accounts, you will want to have a special password, and you can also consider password managers to help you keep track of those. We have a separate program on cyber safety, and we can also share information about cyber safety, and that will be coming to you later. We suggest please sign up for the Do Not Call Registry. The Do Not Call Registry, some people say, well, I signed up, but I don't really know if it was that helpful. I continue to receive calls. Well, in a way, that's a bit of a red flag. A legitimate business has 31 days to remove your name from their call list if you are on the Do Not Call Registry. So once you register for Do Not Call, if a business calls you out of the blue and attempts to sell something, chances are they're not a legitimate business. They're not following the law. And there are certain types of businesses or organizations that are exempt from Do Not Call Registry: charities, political parties, and businesses with which you already have a relationship. Those types of organizations, however, want to maintain a good relationship with you, and if you ask them to remove your name from their list, typically they will. You can opt out of pre-approved credit offers. So if you are someone, again, going back to using the locking mailbox, if you are someone who gets pre-approved credit card offers, it's because someone has gone into the credit bureaus, they've looked at your credit rating, at your FICO score, and they have deemed you credit worthy. And now they are sending you a pre-approved credit offer. So there's two problems with that. One is you've got people who are looking at your credit that you may not want. And second, you are receiving these pre-approved credit card offers in the mail. Not a good idea. Opt out of those, and you can do that. We're going to, again, share the information that you're going to get with a lot of numbers and resources that you can use. That should be coming to you either later today or tomorrow. And you'll notice there it says use a credit card instead of a debit card. And here's the reason why. Credit cards have a lot more protection. If your credit card is misused and if you dispute the charge, the credit card company is obligated to put that charge on hold. You will not be financially responsible until they do an investigation. Debit cards do not have that protection, and I have a personal story about that, in that we were traveling overseas. We decided to use our debit card because we wanted to get local currency. It was stolen, and we contacted the bank in the middle of the night. We asked them to please cancel that card. They did not. Charges went against our debit card, and it went right into even our savings account because there was that overdraft protection. And by the time we got home, we were absolutely penniless, and it took about 3 months for the bank to straighten it out. Finally, they did. They were not obligated to. They did make us whole eventually, but it was really stressful. It would not have happened if we had had a credit card. So I just, caution you, if you do have a debit card, perhaps get one that has a pretty low balance or something so that someone will not take advantage of you and clean out your money. Be cautious about answering phone calls. So as Cottrell mentioned, we used to say, well, look at your caller ID. But we have kind of an interesting AARP story in that our state director, for $10, I have to really stress that $10, it was unbelievable to me. He bought an app for $10 and had it installed on his phone. With that app, he is able to call anywhere in the world, and he can make it appear it's any telephone number he enters into his phone. So let's say I only give information to my bank if my bank calls me. Well, he is able to make his phone, using his number, appear to be coming from my bank. It could appear to be coming from the White House. It could appear to be coming from the CDC, and someone's doing contact tracing. So again, you cannot count on the legitimacy of caller ID. Also, in addition to phone calls, text messages now are really becoming a source of fraud. Be really cautious. We're a little too, a little too concerned about responding to text messages, and it must be more important than a regular phone call if we're getting a text. But those calls, too, are being spoofed. Always protect your information. Never give it out to anyone unless you initiate the contact. To check credentials of professionals. And this comes a lot around financial investing. And you may have heard recently, or in recent years, about how important it is to make sure that you use a fiduciary and not just someone who's a financial advisor. And the reason being that a fiduciary is obligated to make investments that are in your best interest. A regular financial advisor is totally within the law to make an investment in your interest, but maybe you're not your best interest, but maybe it's in the financial advisor's best interest because there's a little higher commission. So again, you want to use a fiduciary, someone who will always act in your best interest. You can check on a financial advisor's reputation through FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. They have a website, brokercheck.org. You can go there to see if any complaints have been filed against a financial investment professional. Freeze your credit. You want to freeze your credit with the 3 major credit bureaus. You also want to look at your credit reports. You want to make sure there aren't any mistakes there. You want to see if perhaps someone has applied for credit in your name. I have spoken with people who have had mortgages taken out in their names, and they had no idea that they were shown as someone who had a $200,000 debt to a mortgage company. If you freeze your credit, and if you later on determine that you need to maybe finance a car or you're going to need to open the credit, you can ask the financial expert at whatever that location is, say, which of the credit bureaus do you use? And then you could go to that one credit bureau and you could put a thaw. That's the expression they use, is a thaw on your credit freeze. It happens within 15 minutes. You can then give them the information they need. They will get access to your financial information, and then you can refreeze. In these times of coronavirus, we are able to look at our credit reports each week. And my understanding is that this additional access is in place until April. Typically, we can only look once a year with each of the three bureaus, but they have really loosened those restrictions so that we can look more frequently. The reason being because the amount of fraud that is happening. So I think that's a real indicator that we really need to keep close eye on our financial reporting. Sometimes people have said to me, I don't really care. You know, I'm not going to take out more credit. It doesn't bother me if my credit score is off or whatever. But I would say really be cautious about that, because you can actually end up paying more for things like car insurance. Who knew, right? Homeowners insurance could be more expensive for people who have a bad credit rating. And if you are someone who's looking for employment, you could be denied employment if a prospective employer sees that you have a bad credit rating. I think it's really important to look at your credit reports and make sure that they're all legit. And we also suggest join the Fraud Watch Network. Kit's going to share information in a moment about how you can do that. If you check our website, our information from the Fraud Watch Network, you will be up to date as to what is happening in our area, what are the kinds of scams. So Kit's going to tell us more about that right now.
Thank you.
I can advance this side. Okay, we're on our way. There we go.
There you go. So if you or someone you know has been a victim of fraud, I know this has been a lot of information to take in, but please call the number listed there. This is our Fraud Watch Network number, 877-908-3360, and you'll be connected with a live person, which is wonderful. We also encourage you to visit our website, aarp.org/fraud network. And you don't need to be a member to access it. In addition, you can get free resources and information, some of the things that you heard today. And you can sign up for our free watchdog alerts, and and then you can receive emails every 2 weeks, and they will alert you on things that are up to date and criminal activity that's happening in your community. Also on the Fraud Network site, you can also take advantage of our scam tracking map, which is kind of cool, where you can report scams, which is important to report them so we can keep track about scams reported by others in the county and close to you. So you can see what's being reported around you and keep up to date on things that are happening in your area. One sad footnote is that victims are frequently scammed by people that they know. This is popular too often friends and family, right? So we really would like for you to report any abuse or financial exploitation that is being taken place by a vulnerable adult in Washington. And you can call this number. It's 1-866-IN-HARM. And the numbers, I never like the letters because then I have to figure them out, but it's 1-866-363-4276. And it's also anonymous, so you don't have to reveal your identity, but reporting those things is only helps stop them. And then last but not least, our website. There we go. Okay, you did go. Like I said, that number that I gave you before, you can actually talk to a live person, a trained assistant. It will help you. In addition, stay in touch with our Washington State office. We have a Facebook page. You can like our Facebook page. There's a lot of really good information on there. If you're into social media, you can get all kinds of updates. And we also have videos on there and different warnings about other scams. And we're also on Twitter at AARPW. We brought all of this information for you today, and we hope that you're going to use it. I know it was a lot, but go out to our website and be active and take part. Thank you.